This is an issue particularly important for me due to the fact that my wife is African American and my daughter, just born this past December, is half black, half Asian. And the thing to keep in mind though is first off, the Asian American community in the United States is a relatively small community. Only 4% of the US is Asian, and the term Asian can refer to anybody with ancestry from the continent of Asia, which includes East Asia, like China, Japan, Korea. It could include Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, and also South Asia, such as India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Uh, so, um, so when we say Asian, that's a very broad definition of a group of people, and um, some might even disagree whether everybody considered Asian is the same race. So you might say that somebody with South Asian ancestry doesn't look that much like somebody with East Asian ancestry, and so among the largest percentage between ethnicities in the U.S. are people of Chinese and Indian descent. When we talk about East Asian, particularly like China, Korea, Japan, I'm Korean. That's even a smaller percentage of the total Asian population. So we're a small minority in the country, but there are areas, particularly in urban areas, where there's more interaction between Black and Asian Americans, and the area of which seems to have been a lot of conflict is with Asian small business owners, like convenience stores, liquor stores in Black communities. Uh, so there's kind of a bad rap of Asian businesses in Black communities, saying that they don't live there, they charge high prices, and are rude to customers who are mostly Black because they were in Black communities. Uh, so, um, I don't doubt that there are rude exchanges in those situations. A lot of history to that, so it doesn't make it right. Um, and there's kind of some negative interactions both ways, whether it's from the Asian business owners or Black customers. It can go both ways. But so as you should probably most you probably know that the world has a history of a lot of anti-Black attitudes, particularly I guess due to historic um, European dominance in the past. Uh, I guess the past 200 years of world history, with European colonization of different parts of the world. And so they kind of set the tone as far as race relations, or what ideas of race. They kind of set the dominant, like, ideas about race, particularly when you talk about racist ideas. Because of that, I think um, also within perceptions in film and TV, throughout a lot of modern history, that the depictions of Black people have been negative. A lot of people coming from Asia, their only perception, at least within the past like 20, 30 years, probably had negative perceptions of black people from film and movies, TV shows from America, and particularly with people of um, Korean background, there was U.S. involvement in the Korean War. So, other than movies, another way people may have had contact or seen black people is in the military. But also, remember, this would have been the 50s, so there was still quite a bit of race discrimination in military entries. So, most American soldiers that went to Korea were probably white in comparison to those who were black, and perhaps racist attitudes among white soldiers at the time could also influence how Koreans may have thought of black people. And up until the 1960s, there was limited immigration allowed from Asia. So there was the Chinese Exclusion Act from the late 1800s that prevented people from China or Asia in general to be able to come to the U.S. But there were, in the 1960s, right after the Civil Rights Act, there were some loosening of immigration laws which started allowing people from Asia to come over. And one of the things that would make it easier for immigration from anywhere is if somebody already has like a professional skill, have a college degree, are skilled in the sciences or medicine. So that's actually how a lot of people from Asia started coming over. Like for my family in particular, my aunt was the first to come over because she was a nurse, and there was a shortage of medical staff in the U.S. So they've allowed people to get work visas, become permanent residents and citizens if they had a medical background from another country. So it was much easier to come over if you had a skill, particularly in science, engineering, medicine, and it also allowed people who were already here to allow families to come over. So the first people who were coming over were people who had degrees or had a good professional skill, and after they came, then they might be able to bring their families over who were probably more likely than the rest of the population to be college educated or have kind of an upwardly mobile trajectory. So that is why a lot of the perception is that Asians are successful. Is not because they are particularly more successful. It's because if you're here in the first place, you are more likely to be here if you had family members who had degrees in the sciences or medicine or engineering, and then their family members are probably more likely to be educated and upwardly mobile. So that is the reason that's the case, and it is also isn't the case across all Asian ethnicities, as people who came over here as refugees didn't have that type of skill or background. So you might have certain Asian communities who came as refugees who have a high poverty rate and lower income compared to the rest of the country. And the so I suppose most people have a general idea about African American history in the U.S., but many don't. But so at the same time, like up until the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s, discrimination in employment and where people could live still existed. So black people, until the Civil Rights Act, were not able to live in certain places. They were only allowed to live in certain places, and there was job discrimination. So black communities were more likely to be poorer, have less access to education and jobs. And then once the Civil Rights Act passed, then it was illegal to discriminate. But only the people who were already making money were able to move out of those communities. So when they can live whenever they want, most people were kind of stuck to where they were living because they didn't make enough money to live anywhere else, even if it was not illegal to do so. So many black communities ended up uh, staying poor because of that. So because up until then they had lack of opportunities and discrimination, and so it becomes harder to move up out of it because that's you only have low funded schools, no jobs nearby that pay well. Many people may rely on public transportation, and it's hard to get to work on time using public transportation. So, because of lack of access to education and jobs, poor communities tend to end up staying poor. And the way that they became segregated in the first place is because of discrimination that was legal up until the Civil Rights Act. So the thing that happened when they started allowing people from Asia to come over, some uh, conservative, like I guess social scientists, I guess, they try to say that look at the Asian people, they're not active in civil rights, but they're successful. So they tried to put a wedge between black people and Asian people this way, saying that, look, the Asian people, they work hard, they're successful like black people, but it's not because of race, it's because of the reason why they were able to get here in the first place. So, but even so, going back to um, the relations of Asian business owners and black communities. So when they first, so again, people were more likely to come over if they were skilled in medicine and engineering or science, but they also brought their families over who didn't have any English speaking or poor English speaking ability. They may be upwardly mobile, have come up with a family that works hard, whatever. So the best way that they could make any or have any possibility of being upwardly mobile is if they were business owners. So perhaps with the help of family, a family member who was maybe a doctor, nurse, scientist, or the community itself could have helped these people get business loans to open businesses. But they were often only able to afford to open businesses in low-income areas such as low-income black neighborhoods, and that's how that started. They ended up there because that's the only places where they could open businesses. So with all that history and a lot of cultural misunderstandings, like for example, there was a study of in Korea, for example, within like store communication, unless people know each other, they generally don't make a lot of small talk. They're not particularly like talking about the weather or making any friendly conversation with customers in the stores unless they know people. That's cultural. And also there's the piece of in East Asian culture, it's considered rude to look people directly in the eyes. So it's a form of challenge. So one of the perceptions was that Asian people, they're rude because they don't make eye contact, but that's cultural. But I mean, again, there may be some rude interaction because of uh, uh, stereotypes that people believe. Maybe that I don't negate that. That is possible, but much of the accusations of being rude may also be cultural, and at the same time, because of that, because in American culture, uh, you're supposed to be like it's more acceptable to make small talk and that kind of stuff. So in the other hand, because people are like making small talk, again from the other side, they may think of that as rude. Um, so that could be an issue of why that happens. So which is all which is to say there's nothing about particular cultural groups that make them more racist. There's a lot of historical reasons of why things are the way they are, um, and uh, and there's been the history in this country to wedge black people against Asian people because they didn't want to do more programs to help low-income communities, trying to say that it's cultural and not because of systemic racism, which I believe is real and which I believe history shows that is real. And so, due to a lot of no education in that area, I think is what causes any further rifts or misunderstandings between Black and Asian people. And being that both Black and Asian people are uh, racial minorities in the country, I think it's better for us to have an understanding and know that we face some like difficulties in rights or whatnot, or access to opportunity, and have different challenges, but both experience challenges as part of being immigrant communities, or I mean, I'm sorry, like minority communities. And it's better for us to have understanding and work together, try to understand each other. And I don't think enough Asian Americans have that understanding of the history of how of systemic racism and how that has affected communities of color. And I think it's important for us to educate ourselves about it and why there is still um, like a economic disparity between Black communities and white communities and so forth. So I think it's important for everybody to educate themselves on these things so that people have figured out a way to move forward that's equitable and fair for everybody.